While movies becoming a series is certainly not exclusive to the horror genre, look at things like James Bond, the Marvel and DC hero flicks, or even the Fast and Furious franchise, horror is probably what it's most famous for, and where studios will decide to take any solo movie and make sequel after sequel after sequel.
Trick or treat, mother.
Sometimes this makes sense, like the Halloween movies, Friday the 13th, or Nightmare on Elm Street, as they mostly kept being profitable and had big-time draw and appeal. This isn't always the case, though, as we would also get, quite frankly, a ludicrous number of entries in series like The Howling, Children of the Corn, and Hellraiser. Not being released to theaters doesn't matter either, as most of the 3 previously mentioned series didn't crack the big screen in their sequels, and neither did stuff from Wishmaster, The Prophecy, and today's entry for Warlock. While today's movie certainly has its issues, and is the 3rd best movie in a series of 3, it gets unfairly pushed to the side as a nothing burger, where it's actually got some weird charm and a decent amount of watchability. This is Warlock III, the black sheep of the series. The Warlock series started like most horror installments, with the first couple movies hitting theaters and performing okay. Warlock came out in 1989 and pulled in a little over $9 million on its $15 million budget, and the second flick, Warlock the Armageddon, brought back $4 million on its budget of $3.9 to $6.5 million. These don't sound like glass-shattering numbers, and they aren't, but both movies did quite well in the home video market, with rental companies making their purchases and consumers getting them on VHS, Laserdisc, and the other home video formats at the time. The series didn't die though, at least not right away, as we got a very strange movie video game tie-in 2 years after the release of the second film, with the singularly titled Warlock coming out on the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo in May of 1995. 4 years after that, we would get this odd third entry that was released straight to video on October 12, 1999. The budget was cut drastically again to $2 million, which I guarantee it made back with its home video sales. Trimark couldn't get either director of the first 2 movies, Steve Miner or Anthony Hickox, back, nor could he get the star in the late great Julian Sands. It could have been the long time gap between entries, the budget, or just the fact that nobody felt the need to revisit this series anymore. Except maybe Trimark, who had the distribution rights. Eric Freiser and Bruce Eisen are credited with the script, and for Eisen, this would be the only writing credit, but he would be a producer on some other fun straight-to-video sequels like The Dentist 2, Leprechaun in the Hood, and Sometimes They Come Back for More. Eric Freiser would co-write and direct the movie, and he too wouldn't have much in those categories under his belt. To replace Julian Sands, the writers had to not only tweak the character, but also find the right actor. Gone are the subtle, charming horrors of Sands' Warlock, and in are the overtly evil and, yes, charming horrors of the new Warlock, played by Bruce Payne. Payne has had a heck of a career with writing, acting, and producing. He's shown up in tiny parts as far back as Michael Mann's The Keep, to amazing turns in stuff like Passenger 57 as the foil for Wesley Snipes. He's also no stranger to straight-to-video horror fun with things like The Howling 6 and Necronomicon Book of the Dead. The rest of the cast, apart from the lead, are a fun collection of that guy and girl actors who mostly worked in TV, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Rick Hurst, who also stars in Brain Damage. The main character, however, is played by Kirsty from Hellraiser's plural Ashley Lawrence. Our favorite fighter of Cenobites has actually been in a lot more horror than most people think of, including Mikey and Lurking Fear, and she makes this movie more fun than it should have been. Odd that the 2 main characters played by the most fun actors barely interact, but at least it makes their scenes more entertaining, and there's rarely a time when either one of them aren't on screen. This movie is a sequel and is in the same universe as the other 2, but the Warlock wasn't just recast, this is a different Warlock. The story follows college student Chris, played by Lawrence, who has a boyfriend and a solid group of buddies, but doesn't know much of anything about her family. This changes slightly when she gets a phone call about a giant mansion being left to her by those people she never knew. She brings along her boyfriend and the other college friends that are, of course, just generic late 90s shells for the most part. We have the self-proclaimed witch woman, non-confident guy friend, and frosted tips bro to round out the roster. There's also this older guy who's a historian that gives some background and context to the Warlock that may or may not reside in the house, as well as the history of the mansion. He does, and Frosted Tips Bro accidentally lets him out by fixing the pipes in a non-porn meaning way.
Hello.
The movie deviates slightly from the other two movies' vibes after the first scene, but I have a theory. I, and many other people, have pointed out that a whole bunch of the Hellraiser sequels between Part 4 and the Hulu reimagining were just non-Hellraiser scripts that were turned into Hellraiser movies either right before production began or a little bit inside. Just slap Pinhead in there for 15-ish minutes, not even concurrently, and call it suffering. This movie, and I can't prove it, feels like it was a Hellraiser movie for a while until it wasn't, and the studio decided to make it a Warlock jam instead. While not a one-for-one comparison, the lead bad guy feels a lot more like Pinhead than Warlock. It has Ashley Lawrence as the main character, and all of her buddies end up in hell after they die. The final confrontation and the opening bookend scene with Chris's descendant even feel like something that Pinhead and the Cenobites would have made a deal for. Of course, the Warlock here also feels like he took some inspiration from Wishmaster, so what do I know? Chris doesn't know it yet, but her past life involved a battle with the Warlock where she was to be used as a sacrifice, but her mom turned the tables on the guy, Covington, and ended up trapping him in their house. This plays out pretty well when we get a good long segment of time where it's just Chris in the house before her friends arrive. Well, Chris and the ghosts and whatnot. It's a good showcase of Lawrence and a reason to watch the movie. Well, remember when Frosted Tips Bro fixed the pipes? That lets out Covington, who starts killing off people slasher villain style. First he takes out the historian, who recognizes him as a threat, while he's posing as an architect. He hits him with the 1-2 punch of a witty one-liner followed by a gory act that corresponds to that one-liner.
It got right. Then let me give you some air.
Dude even sandwiches the death with another one-liner based on the kill. Payne is no Julian Sands, at least in terms of Warlock characters, but as a Pinhead Wishmaster Freddy clone, he's pretty great. He starts taking out the rest of the friends one by one, with the next person being the witch friend who tries to fight but is quickly outmatched. He freezes her in place before shattering her into a bunch of pieces. The kills, while kind of few and far between for a movie like this, are still pretty fun. Throats get ripped out, bodies get shattered, people get naked tortured, which is the best type of torture, as we all know. The effects are way better than they should be for a direct-to-video sequel in the late 90s. The throat rip is convincing enough, and the ice shatter could have been a lot worse than it ends up looking on screen. Even the burn effects look kinda cool when he's being tested into betraying Chris. Speaking of the main character, she figures everything out when she finds the historian's body, as well as a confrontation with our Warlock buddy, before being shown some of her own history by reading some letters that are a B-grade plot device. She tries to run, but is stuck in the house and has to watch her friends both betray her and die. It's horror in a couple of ways, as she knows that her friends will suffer an eternal damnation, but also give her up in the name of slightly less suffering. Jerry, who secretly loves her and only wants her to be happy, is maybe the most tragic because the Warlock shows her saying some really mean things, and that's kind of what sets him off. She even knows she screwed up, as one of my favorite parts is her crying and saying she didn't say those things even though she absolutely said those things. With all of her friends and loved ones dead, it comes down to a final confrontation with the Bruce Payne version of Manifested Evil, where he gives a really good monologue. It's also here where I noticed an eagle sound for the first time. And when watching it briefly again to remind myself of some of the things I wanted to talk about, they use the eagle sound at least 20 times. Good lord. Chris escapes him, briefly enough to incapacitate him and figure out how to defeat him. She stabs him with a knife held in her doll, and he dies while turning into some sort of Jim Henson creation, before she sees her ghost mom again and finds some tarot cards that give her girl boss powers. She walks out like she didn't just have a transformative personal experience and lose all of her friends to hell. A Tuesday. Warlock III, Wishmaster Returns to Hellraiser, I guess, isn't a great movie. Its music selection is irritating. acting by 90% of the cast struggles, and if we played a drinking game based on the eagle sound, we would all die. But it's got some charm to it. Bruce Payne and Ashley Lawrence are worth the price of admission, and while it's slow at parts, the kills and effects are worthy of our horror hound needs. It's not a good Warlock movie, no, but it rests securely as the black sheep of the series and a worthwhile entry into your watch list.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.